Let's begin as we do by taking a few breaths. So exhale, take a deep breath in. Let's do that again. Breathe in and let go. One more, breathe in and let go. Oh, it's dog church.
I'm gonna go get cookies.
Yeah. So, good morning again. We're happy here today. So, it's September, y'all. I don't know if you've noticed, but 2022 is like,
Yes.
there it went. And, we're almost a quarter of the way through the 21st century. Wow. So, this year, 2022, our theme here at the center has been our year of inner and outer permaculture. And each month we've been looking at the 12 principles of regenerative agriculture, also known as permaculture, as our 12 months themes. And so I wanted to take a quick minute and just remind us where we've been since January. So we started the year off with our first principle, which was observe and interact. Right? And we said that this is, yes, the first principle of permaculture, but also really the first principle of mindfulness and really all spirituality in general, and especially science of mind, right? We have to observe what is, take account of the situation, and then from there, we interact with what is, right? And much of the world appears to me to sort of interact without observing first. Right? When we just run into situations and we run off of our automatic autopilot default mode network, all of that. So observe first. Take the opportunity to stop, look, and listen, and then interact with what's happening in your world. Then in February, we said use and value diversity, right? That much of this year is looking at the nature of nature. And if we look at a forest, if we look at an ecosystem, monoculture, sameness, is not what leads to thriving, right? It is a diverse ecosystem with lots of species, with lots of interests, with lots of differences that leads to the great thriving that we see in the nature of nature itself. Then in March, we said design from patterns to details. And to me, this one is oh so science of mind, right? Because it tells us that it's the patterns that then create the details. It's the patterns of our thinking, the mode of our thoughts, the general tendency of our attention that then trickles down into all the little details of how we do our life. And I had this thought earlier this week, really, that how you do anything is how you do everything, right? That's the patterns show up in the details. Next, in April, we said produce no waste. Right? Much of this conversation is about leading to a thriving life, a thriving world, leading ourselves into a sustainable future. And in that, we have to recognize that nothing can be wasted, that we have to see the value in absolutely everything. And nature never wastes anything. Even the waste becomes the nutrients that keeps the system thriving. In May, we said apply self-regulation and accept feedback. That one's fun. We all chuckled a lot through the month of May. And this is really, again, sort of observe and interact on the next level, right? If you are applying self-regulation and accepting feedback, it means that you're paying attention and that what is showing up is informing you about how things are or are not working. And then based on that information, we can redirect, shift our thought, change our behavior, move in a new direction. And then in June, we said use slow and small solutions. Nothing happens overnight, and oftentimes it's those little itty-bitty insignificant changes that we make in our life that can lead to great trajectory changes off in the future or off in the distance. And that to change our thinking, to change our mind, to change our life, we just want to chip away at it. One day at a time, one meditation at a time, one prayer at a time, one shift in thought at a time, and then we can move continuously in the direction of our dreams. From that, we said use edges and value the marginal, right? We looked at the overlap. Again, this also speaks to that use and value diversity, recognizing that it's in the overlap of our differences, it's in the edges of our awareness. That's where the growth happens. That's where the greatest fertility becomes available in nature. You know, an ecotone is where two ecosystems cross over each other. And where those edges overlap, you find species and things happening that show up nowhere else. So the magic happens in the edges and in the overlap. And when we step into our growth edges, that's how we become more of ourselves, right? August, we said creatively use and respond to change. We spent all last month talking about making friends with change, right? And recognizing that when change comes our way, there is an invitation for us to shift, to pivot, to turn, to dance with life, to take all of the changes that come our direction as an invitation to look at something in a new way, to take in a new perspective, to gain a new way of being. And so now we're in September, and our new principle for this month is use and value renewables. Use and value renewables. And one of the things that I want to point out is that a number of our principles this year have started with these first same couple words. Use and value, right? Use and value diversity. Use and value all the different things we've talked about. And often, do we really look at the deep value that is in all of the things that sustain us? Or do we just use them, right? We talked about this idea of things move from patterns to details, and how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And look at much of the systems of our world that teach us to consume without thinking about the impact, that teach us to use without valuing, right? All of the little choices that each one of us make throughout the day that are presented to us, perhaps as not even being choices, but just the way things are. When we make those choices, we're buying into a particular belief system. We're choosing to perpetuate a certain way of being. And this whole intention with looking at these principles this year is really to move all of us in our minds to thinking about how do I live in a more sustainable world, and how do I create a more sustainable world for myself and others, and how do I create a sustainable life for myself, right? And in this idea of using and valuing renewables, in permaculture, we're talking about renewable energy and renewable resources. But I also want each one of us to realize that we are renewable resources, that our thinking, our brain is a renewable resource. And then to think about this idea of sustainability. And are you living a life that is sustainable? And not even to take that out to a global level yet, let's just look at that personally for a moment. If you were to continue operating in the mode that you are operating, doing what you are doing, could you continue without becoming depleted? Because that will tell you if you're living a sustainable life or not. Right? Sustainability is about maintaining a trajectory towards thriving that does not lead to depletion. Right? And so each one of us, I want to invite us this month as we're looking at this idea of using and valuing renewables, that we first look at our own lives and ask ourselves, am I living a life that is sustainable? Am I valuing myself as a renewable resource? Do I take the time to take care of myself so that my energy is renewed enough so that I can show up for the things that are important? Because especially in the world of social and environmental activism, I find a lot of people feel it's so important to give, and do, and oftentimes the one person we forget to take care of is ourselves. And if we do not put ourselves first, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if we don't put ourselves first, we can't fully show up to what's important. And so to ask ourselves, is the way that I'm operating sustainable? Am I valuing the renewable energy that is available to me all of the time? I had a minister friend give a talk a number of years ago, and her metaphor was, how many of you have a cell phone? Come on, raise your hand. Okay, good. Almost all of us. How often do you let the battery just die? Right? So, it's green, and then it's yellow, and then it gets red, and it's like 10%, and a little low battery thing comes up to close, right? And you go looking for the charger. Oh my God, I cannot let my phone die. I have to plug this in, right? Are you that concerned about your own energy? Do you pay attention to your own meter of how much energy, how much battery life you have left? Do you take the time to stop and recharge when necessary so that you can continue to do what is needed, so that the whatever it is that you're working on doesn't lose its power, right? And we know here in this place that we are all working with the one renewable source of all energy, which is spirit, which is consciousness. It never ends. It never gives up. It is always. And so do we take the time to tap into that renewable energy every single day and plug ourselves in? To sit in the presence, to contemplate the truth, to be in the stillness, to allow ourselves to become refreshed and renewed so that we can be resourced enough to do what we need to do in the world and for ourselves and for our families and what we're here to be, right? And so I really want us to take this month as we explore this theme to really think about what it means for us to step into a sustainable future. You know, we have our beautiful CSL Global Vision, which we read regularly, and it points us back to this vision that we are invoking of a world that works for everyone, right? And in that, there is a line that says we envision a world in which resources are valued and cared for, and where there's a generous and continuous sharing of those resources. You might say that there's a line in our global vision that says use and value renewables, right? These things pair up perfectly. And that's why it's been so fun to take this lens of permaculture and say, look at this. This is science of mind in another language. This is, science of mind tells us how to navigate and shift and change and build a permanent perspective, right? We learn how to work the landscape of our mind. Well, permaculture just tells us how to work the landscape of the world, and yet we know that what's happening on the inside is what's happening on the outside. And so whether you start here or start there, it's a circle. It all goes together, right? And so we're using these principles to say, what does it look like to move into a sustainable life where we really, truly do value the energy that we have? And if we can put that kind of priority on our own recharging, on our own renewal, on our own ability to really deepen into the truth, then we can start to reflect that into the patterns and the details of our lives in the world, right? And if we start focusing on the things in the world and learning how to be more sustainable, learning how to value renewables, learning how to replicate nature, then that moves in and might shift the way that we start to see things, right? And so I'm really excited about this idea this month of us really contemplating what it means for each one of us to really value our own energy and to value the energy that is shared with us by the people around us, by the plants and the animals and the society and the culture around us. There is so much energy that goes into making each one of us who we are. And are we truly grateful and stewarding that energy in a conscious and respectful way? Do we really pay attention to the impact of our choices? And does this idea of being sustainable and renewable not only land in our own minds, but does it trickle out into our little choices in our daily life? Do we contemplate the source of our good? Do we contemplate whether or not that is sustainable or renewable? Do we value the people who are picking our food or delivering or preparing our food? Do we recognize that people are not a resource to be used? People are there to be valued. And then when we share in that value, we can all thrive together. But the world that we all live in has not done a good job of holding these things in balance, right? Much of our good comes at the expense of someone else, or at the expense of the future, or at the expense of nature. And that is not sustainable. That is not renewable, right? And so do we see that if we want to be a people who actually have integrity and truly live in alignment with our values, do we recognize that our choices everywhere we go need to reflect the deep core essences of our belief? And that's part of why I really have invited us to use this permaculture theme this year, because it invites us to take the practice out of our heads and take it into our lives. And invites us to look at how we interact with the world, how we interact with the landscape around us, and are we doing what we say we believe on the inside? Are we acting it out on the outside, right? And the more we can clean that up, the greater beauty, creativity, abundance, prosperity, and love every one of us gets to experience. But so much of the discord in our lives and the things that we're creating that aren't working are coming from this friction of the misalignment of our values and our actions, right? And a lot of it's invisible. A lot of it we don't see. A lot of it we don't think is a choice because it's just what is. But we are consciously always making the choices that are creating what is. And so what is up to you, right? And we have to bring that into the depth of our choices and the way that we walk in the world. And so just start to think about it. You know, pay attention to what you're using this week and how much you value what you're using. Every time you open something up and it's supposed to go into the garbage can or the recycle, do you think about the process, or do you just toss it away? You know, a friend of mine said to me a number of years ago that they were startled as a young child when they realized there is no away. You can't throw anything away, you just throw it somewhere else. Right? That's not sustainable. You know, we think we're doing good things, but much of our recycling just ends up on the beaches of Indonesia. Right? Are we really recognizing the cycles that we're participating in and bringing deep awareness and recognizing that whatever we use, we must value? Whether that be the packaging, the food, the people, the relationships, the money, whatever it is that we are using in our life, recognize that there's deep value in all of it. Because it's all energy, and all of that energy is God stuff. And in that, there is deep beauty, there's deep purpose, there's deep meaning in all of it. But we have to name it. We have to hold that for ourselves and be willing to enact that truth in all of the activities of our lives. And as we do so, we can build sustainable lives for ourselves, not becoming depleted in the process, and then becoming a people who demonstrate what sustainability looks like as a way of thinking, as a way of doing, and as a way of being in the world. And that's how we move, using slow and small solutions, towards the activation of our global vision of building a world that works for ourselves, for each other, and indeed for all of life. So that's what I got to say today. Take a deep breath. And take another deep breath. And as we breathe together, let us just let these thoughts land. Remembering that there is indeed only one presence, one power, one infinite renewable source of all that is, and I call it God. It is the energy of existence. It is my consciousness. It is the that which is beating my heart, speaking these words, hearing these words, breathing my body, living and breathing as each one of us. And so let us just take another deep breath into that awareness, remembering that with every breath we are refreshed, we are made new. That with every indrawn breath, we have the opportunity to take in that renewable source of all energy and then breathe it out into the world. And so right here and right now, I claim, know, and declare for each one of us that we are moving towards greater sustainability in our own lives, in this community, and in the world. That we are inviting ourselves to step up, to stand up in a new way, and to be something more. To truly observe ourselves, to observe the state of the world around us, to observe what is, and then interact from a higher place of awareness because we've taken the time to tap in, to tune in, and remember the truth of who we are, and then bring that awareness into everything that we see so that what we see becomes the place where the world starts to change for the good. And we recognize that it begins with each one of us. That we are the starting place. And that we are connected to an energy source, to a love force, to a consciousness, to a power for good in this universe that is unending and unlimited. And so let us be a people who return to that awareness each and every day to charge up our spiritual batteries so that we have the power to be the change we wish to see in this world, and to share that light of truth everywhere we go. And so let us just be in gratitude today for the opportunity to be together in this space, cultivating this awareness as a community, and inviting in a more sustainable future for ourselves and for the world. And so let us celebrate that, knowing that what we celebrate expands, comes to us, and then we surrender, we let go, we let it be, remembering that there is a power for good in this universe, and it is moving through us, and so let it use us in everything we do, because we are the light of the world. And so it is.